Okay, so that's how you showed up. Congratulations. If you notice, there are about 200 million sperm for one egg. So one egg is patiently waiting, and 200 guys are racing, and they don't want to stop for directions. So only one of them makes it. But here you are. Okay, at the moment of conception, you have 23,000 genes. A gene is a stretch of DNA that codes for a unit of what we call heredity. And a unit of heredity is a protein. So a gene makes a protein. You have 23,000 of these, but they don't act by themselves. They act in cooperation with other genes. DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid, which are 4 chemicals or 4 bases. And instead of remembering the whole name, we can say A, T, C, and G. A stands for adenine, T, thymine, C, cytosine, and G, guanine. So A, T, C, and G are the 4 alphabets of life. So in the English language, we use 26 letters, but life uses 4 letters, and that's your life, the life of a mosquito, the life of a rhinoceros, the life of a primate, the life of a banana, the life of a rose, anything that we call life, only 4 letters. It's called economy of expenditure of energy. Do less and accomplish more. And so these 4 letters create the genes that we have, 23,000, half from your father, half from your mother. The actual chemicals that make the DNA, I mentioned, the chemicals are made of molecules, they're A, T, C, and G, but the atoms that go into those are mostly carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. So 4 atoms make up of about 95% of all the atoms in your body. The other 5% are from all the other elements of the periodic table. So where do these atoms come from? The atoms come from the crucible of burning stars. The carbon going to your, making up your fingernail, the oxygen going to your brain, they may have come from different galaxies in different eons of cosmic history. In fact, the hydrogen goes back, some of it, to the Big Bang. 13.8 billion years in cosmic time. So please don't blow it. Okay? It took you 13.8 billion years to get here. So the atoms are coming from different stars, different galaxies. And now during the 9 months that it takes to manufacture, literally, a human baby, the baby actually, the development of the baby, which is called morphogenesis and differentiation. So morphogenesis, to give rise to form. Those chemicals are just chemicals. But you are this. So in order to get to form, that process is called morphogenesis, to give rise to form. And it's also called differentiation, how the one cell becomes the 100 trillion cells that it takes to make a baby. 100 trillion cells, which is more than all the stars in the Milky Way galaxy. How does that happen? 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 4, 4 becomes 8. It takes only 50 replications to make all of a baby, because it's exponential, right? 1, 2, 4, 8, etc. So 50 replications and there's a human being. And all this process is happening spontaneously. 1 becoming many. So that one cell, 23,000 genes, becomes eyes, becomes nose, becomes fingernails, becomes hair follicles, becomes skin, liver, kidney, intestine, brain, all from that one cell. And that process is called differentiation. Different lines of its own self. And you have to remember, differentiation is not the same thing as separation. Differentiation is not separation. Okay? So your liver is not separate from your kidney. Your kidney is not separate from your brain. We, as doctors, when we study, we think of different parts of the body. But right there is the mistake of the intellect. All our training is based on the mistake of the intellect. Because these different so-called body parts are not different things. They are one activity in a whole biological organism. One activity in your whole body, which is one activity in the whole universe. Okay? So separation is actually misperception. There's no separation. There's only differentiation. But it's the same cell. Remember, it's the same cell and the same atoms that come from the universe. So it's very important to remember that the body doesn't have any parts. Parts are, again, misnomers. It implies that there's something separate from something here. In fact, the whole biological organism and the whole universe is an activity, and it never stops. The activity keeps going on and on and on and on. So when we look at that activity, in a moment of perception, we call it a thing. I look at you and I say, there she is, as a body, right? But that's like taking a picture. If I took your picture and I showed it to someone, and I said, what's your name? Ashley. That's Ashley. Then I think if the person was in their right mind, they would say, no, that's not Ashley, that's a photo of Ashley, right? So in the bigger scheme of things, we are also confusing ourselves with our photos. You're not your photo. This is a photo. And if you took a photo of this when I was a baby, it would have looked a different photo. Was it still me? Yes, of course, right? So when we look at things and we call them things, then we are mistaking them for what they're not. We're mistaking the photo for the thing in itself. The thing in itself is a constantly moving activity of the universe. So this process, morphogenesis, differentiation, it's a dynamic activity. So think of your body as you would think of a verb. The whole universe is a verb. There are no nouns in the universe. Nouns are conventions of language. And we create nouns in our mind when we take photos. But actually everything is constantly on the move. The universe is on the move. And this principle is called self-organization. Self-organization, self-regulation, self-evolution, differentiation, morphogenesis. It's all a process. And your physical body is part of a process that is actually a universal process. Now it's very interesting that in those 9 months, as the baby is coming into existence as a human form, it remembers all its previous forms. So first you look like a reptile, then you look like an amphibian, then you look like a primate, a mammal, and finally, at last, just the last few maybe days before you show up, you look like a human being. 65% of your genes are the same as a banana. 70% of your genes are the same as a fruit fly. Okay? 80% of your genes are the same as a mouse. 98 point something, almost 99% of your genes are the same as a monkey. So what's happening? Life is evolving as you. And it's been going on since the beginning of time. What was there before time began? Well, you'll have to read my next book. Okay? But ever since time began, you've been on a journey. You've been on a cosmic journey. Now, as you come out of the birth canal, as we saw, and provided it's not a cesarean section, then you inhale, which means you breathe in, you're covered by, and you swallow the secretions, the vaginal secretions of your mother. And this implants your body, or I should say a better word would be inoculates your body with the second genome. And this genome we call the microbiome. It is the bacteria of our planet that are recycling through earth, through water, through air. So you have 2.2 million additional genes that you acquire as you come out of the world. Now, even if you were a cesarean section, there would be this inoculation because there's touch and cooing and cuddling and kissing and breathing, all in exchange with your mother, with your parents, with your siblings, and everything that's happening in the environment, contact, so there would be a second inoculation. Anyway, but children who are born with through cesarean sections, these days anyway, if the obstetrician knows what they're doing, they should take the secretions of the mother and make the baby swallow them and inhale them and cover their body and massage them, because your immune system needs those microbiota, as they're called. Technically speaking, you're a few human cells hanging on to a bacterial colony. And if it weren't for these bacteria, you wouldn't be alive. We need the Mother Earth, the big mother, to sustain us. Not once, but all the time. These bacteria are recycling. They have their own genes. There are 150 times more genes to every human gene in your body. Where are they? They're in your gut, in your stomach, in your colon, in all the openings in your body, orifices, and also, of course, skin, fingernails, hair, etc. And they produce their own metabolites, and they crosstalk with the human genome, all with one purpose: to keep you healthy. Okay, all with one purpose, which we call self-regulation or self-organization. So I've used the word self so many times. What is that self that is organizing? Because that self is you. And we say myself, right? I means the self. So self is, for now, we'll use the word consciousness, which is organizing itself. Consciousness, which is organizing itself as the mind, as the body, and ultimately as the experience of the universe. Okay. Now, one thing which I'll get into a little bit, you are not your mind. Your mind is an experience you're having. You say, I had this thought. I had this feeling. I had this desire. So I is obviously not the thought. I is the one that's having the thought. So the thought is an object that is organized by I to have an experience of itself. Okay, so your mind is your thoughts, your emotions, they're mental objects. Your body is a collection of physical objects, and so is the universe, and they're all organized by you as you organize yourself through a process called recursion. Recursion means you repeat the past, and then evolution, which means you take a new step of creativity. Recursion and evolution at the same time. And all the time, body and mind are happening at the same time. Okay, so this was the basis of the book Super Genes, which was based on the interaction between the microbiome, the genome, and the epigenome. So now we've introduced a new term. I just told you microbiome is the bacteria, bacterial genes. Genome is what you got from your parents. And epigenome means above the genes, is a sheet of proteins that are made by the genome and the microbiome. And these proteins are actually in response to life. So once you come out, now you start to have experiences. Eating, breathing, digestion, metabolism, elimination, the five senses, sound, touch, sight, taste, smell, thoughts, emotions, feelings, desires, imagination, love. Every experience actually activates the genome to produce these proteins, which are called the epigenome, which then regulate the genes. So it's all self-regulation. It's all being created by you, the self. The self that at this moment may be calling itself Deepak or Ashley or whatever, Tom or, Punacha, Renee. That's just a name. That's just an assumed identity. But what is behind that assumed identity is your innermost being. For lack of a better word, we can call it your core existence, or what many spiritual traditions would call the soul. That consciousness that has identified itself with a name and with a form and with an experience. So who are we? We are the universal consciousness that has attached itself to name, to form, to history, to experience, and then you say, oh, I'm Deepak. But that's not the real you. The real you is, we start our meditation with, who am I, right? Well, the answer is, I'm a stardust being on a cosmic journey with self-awareness, which will be a deep explanation in the next book, which will be out in about 2 weeks. Okay, so for our purposes then, for practical purposes, we can say that the body is a dynamic activity of seemingly non-change in the midst of change. Of course, your body is changing, right? It's been changing from the moment you were conceived. It's changing now. It's not the same body that you had yesterday. It's not going to be the same body that you have tomorrow. It's not the same body that you had a year ago. 98% of all the atoms in your body or molecules, they recycle once a year. With every breath that you breathe in 10 to the power of 22 atoms, 10 followed by 15 zeros. With every breath, you breathe out 10 to the power of 22 atoms. So right this moment, we are breathing in and breathing out 10 followed by 22 zeros of atoms, and we're all intimately sharing our organs with each other right this moment. No separation, right? Walt Whitman said, every atom that belongs to you as well belongs to me. You right now have 1 million atoms in your body that were once in the body of Jesus Christ, or Buddha, or Michelangelo, or Donald Trump. In just the last 3 weeks, 1 quadrillion atoms have gone through your body that have gone through the body of every other living species on this planet. So your stomach is new every 5 days. Your skin is new once a month. Your liver every 6 weeks. Your skeleton every 3 months. And DNA, which I just shared with you, holds memories of millions of years of time, millions of years. The actual DNA, the carbon, the hydrogen, the oxygen, it comes and goes every 6 weeks like migratory birds. So this is my year 2000 It's already 17 model. And, I came back from New York yesterday with the same suitcase, but not the same body. Okay? You are not your body. It's very important to remember, because there's no such thing as a body. It's an activity of the universe. And that activity is happening in you. But if you think you are your body, then you're in a sense screwed. Why? Because this body will grow old, it'll die, and then you say, what happened? Okay? You are not your body, you are having the experience of something that you call the body, and we'll see how we have that experience. Because in the deeper domains of existence, there's only you. Everything else is your own creation. Your mind is your creation, your body is your creation, and the entire universe is your creation. And so don't be confusing yourself with your body. In any case, that activity is influenced by all these things. Sound, touch, sight, taste, smell, sleeping, being awake, breathing, nutrition, metabolism, environment, nature, universe, thoughts, emotions, memory, desire, imagination, creativity, introspection, intuition, higher consciousness. Remember, all this is one activity. Even though there's a list of activities, it's all one holistic activity. The word holistic, the word health, the word holy are the same word. Healing is the return of the memory of who we are. Wholeness is the return of the memory that is sacred, that is holy, that is the basis of all healing. Okay? And what do we do? How do we mess it up? We mess it up by saying, oh, I'm so stressed and everything is wrong, and running out of time, and multitasking, and performance anxiety, and all the things that happen when we feel psychologically, emotionally, or physically threatened. So everything from depression to anger to hostility to guilt to shame to having difficulty making decisions to feeling burnt out is because we are interfering with the natural process of evolution. So stress is that which interferes with nature, basically. Stress is that which interferes with the spontaneous manifestation of experience in the physical world that is coming from an invisible domain of existence. And that invisible domain is your spirit, is your soul, is your consciousness, is your awareness. Consciousness, awareness, spirit, soul, they're all the same word. So when we have that, then of course we start escaping through drug, alcohol abuse, we start having eating disorders and disruption in sleep and patterns, and we take it out on other people, we take it out on ourselves, we take it out in our career, and ultimately we end up with what we call dis-ease, which is disease. Okay, everything from skin eruptions, which is minor, to musculoskeletal problems, to aches and pains, to gastrointestinal disorders, to cardiovascular problems, headaches, inflammation, hormone imbalances, immune dysfunction, all this directly or indirectly related to interference with what is totally natural, what's been happening for millions of years. And so these are the 6 things you can do right away to correct the mistakes that we make as a result of mistake of the intellect. I am separate from you, you are separate from me, we are separate from each other, and we are separate from the universe. And we've created these words. We said, this is the environment, this is me. Why is this breath, why is this air not your breath? Why is this air right here not your breath? You wouldn't be able to live without it. Why are the trees not your lungs? Because if they didn't breathe, you wouldn't breathe. If you didn't breathe, the trees wouldn't breathe. You know, there are experiments where people put an animal like a mammal, a rabbit or something, or a rat in a vacuum, and it dies. They put a plant in the same vacuum, it dies. They put the plant and the animal together, they both live. Right? Because the plant is breathing in the air that you breathe out as carbon dioxide, and then it breathes out oxygen, and you breathe. So the trees are our lungs. The earth is our body. All those bacteria, they are us. The waters and oceans are our circulation. The air is our breath. And the stars are the fire, the Agni, the metabolism in our own body. It's the metabolic fire of the universe. And this is what Ayurveda also teaches us. Okay? To restore balance, we have to start with the very basic things: sleep, meditation, stress management in all its forms, movement, yoga, breathing properly, mind-body coordination through yoga and breathing and pranayam, healthy emotions like love, compassion, joy, equanimity, healthy nutrition, which means avoiding anything that has chemicals and also is processed, has artificial stuff like antibiotics and hormones and pesticides and inflammatory products, which all cause inflammation in our body, and the disruption of biological rhythms. So we have 4 biological rhythms. As the earth spins on its axis, that's results in a biological rhythm in our body, which is called the circadian rhythm. Okay, so if you have jet lag, that's a disruption in circadian rhythm. I flew from New York last night, 3 hours difference. So it's a little imbalance. But then, are you sitting on these grounding mats? Okay, that's connecting you to the earth. So that would get rid of your circadian rhythm. Okay, anytime you make contact with the earth, on grass, on sand, on the beach, or you are in nature breathing in the beautiful oxygen that's coming out from those trees, or you're looking at a starlit sky, anytime you connect with nature, you're balancing your rhythms. And so circadian rhythms, it's not only the earth is spinning on its axis, the earth is also going around the sun, which brings into our body something called the seasonal rhythm. And especially if you're living in a temperate climate, then you know that you might get a little depressed on a cold winter day, and spring comes and you start falling in love, and birds start singing songs, and everything happens in harmony, right? We are part of the symphony of the universe, and our biology is dancing to it, even though it can't name the tune. So that if you want to name the tune, these are the rhythms: circadian, seasonal, lunar, the cycles of the moon, and tidal, the gravitational effects of the sun and the moon, and the stars and the cosmos on the oceans. But we have an ocean inside us, which is 65% of our body is ocean. We once lived in the ocean, and then we stepped out of it and we brought it with us. So when you ground yourself right now, as you're doing, then you're connecting to the earth, but the earth is also connecting to the solar system, and it's connected to the whole universe. With a simple thing like this, you're beginning to balance your biological rhythms. Okay, so there's a lot of research on this, and we won't have time, but I'll answer your questions later. A lot of research on why sleeping is probably the most efficient way to improve your health. Because during sleep, both in dream state and in deep sleep, you go from your physical body and experiences of the physical world into your subtle body. Subtle body is mind, intellect, and ego, and then you have experiences of that world that we call dreams. And then you go to your ground state, to your soul, when all activity stops. So sleep is a spiritual experience. Don't ruin it with alcohol and drugs or whatever. In fact, you can learn to wake up in sleep in consciousness. So your body is deeply rested, but you're having the experience of yoga in sleep. Yoga means union. Huge. Union with whom? With your own self. But your own self is also the self of the universe. So during sleep, there's lots of things happening. Your unconscious mind is very active, by the way, in sleep. It is processing all that you learned, getting rid of stress, making connections, enhancing your immunity. There's a lot of unconscious processing that's happening. Sleep solidifies what you learn, helps you think clearly. It balances hormones, so you maintain normal weight. It decreases the overall risk of death. And of course, meditation is doing that too. But when you combine meditation with good sleep, then you're actually getting in touch with your soul. So we have been doing some studies now, and I want to show you. These studies have been published. These are some of our colleagues, Elizabeth Blackburn and Alyssa Appel. Elizabeth is a Nobel laureate. She has a new book called The Telomere Effect. It shows how meditation actually enhances or lengthens your telomeres, which are like the extensions of your genes, which help you live long. As we grow old, the telomeres decrease, and there's an enzyme that controls them. It's called telomerase. So we've been doing studies with Elizabeth and Rudy Tanzi and all these scientists at different institutions. And what we found, that in 1 week of a retreat here at the center, Seduction of Spirit course, the enzyme telomerase, which is here, it went up by 40%, which means you're actually reversing your age through meditation. Can you do it indefinitely? Keep decreasing it till you disappear into an orgasm? Well, I don't know. But we can decrease how we age. We can slow it down. Okay? And here are the papers that have been published on this, okay? Meditation and a retreat vacation. Not a vacation in a casino, but a vacation like the one you're having, this vacation. It has an impact on disease-associated molecular phenotypes. These are the molecules that are produced by your genes. And this is the original article in a very high-impact journal called Nature Translational Psychiatry. And basically, when we look at these activities, we can predict who's going to fall sick and who's going to get healthy. This is an activity that you see of your genes. They're actually talking to each other. I'm feeling good. And then when they feel good, your body feels good, your body feels good, and your mind feels good. Your spirit feels light, lightness of being, joyful, energetic body, alert mind. All this starts to happen. Love and compassion, all this happens because you're taking care of yourself. Okay, so we won't go into so many details, but here's a chart which shows that all the genes that are responsible for healing or self-regulation, they go up in their activity, some of them 17-fold over baseline, and all the genes that cause disease or not cause disease, but make it more likely for a person to fall sick, they go down. One thing you should know, only 5% of disease-related gene mutations. So mutation is a mistake in a gene. Okay, think if A, T, C, and G are the letters and genes are the words that become the flesh, then a mutation is a typo. Okay, it's a spelling mistake. Then the wrong protein is produced, and that can cause disease. But only 5% of these mistakes are fully penetrant, which means that the mutation guarantees the disease. And this is where we need to do research. Somebody has a BRCA gene that guarantees the disease, or of the 40 or 50 genes that predispose you to Alzheimer's, only 2 or 3 actually are fully penetrant. And that's true of all diseases, which means 95% of chronic illness, we have the ability to change the expression of that. We have the ability to participate and change that outcome. That's what epigenetics is all about. Okay, epigenetics is all about, and you don't have to go into details right now because these are chemic names which may or may not be familiar to you, because you have to be a molecular biologist to understand what DNA methylation means, what histone modification means. But basically it means that how you live your life, which includes everything from not only the things I mentioned, but how you think, how you feel, how you speak, how you relate to others, how you interact with each other, your diet, your lifestyle, drugs if you take, or even if if your mother took something, that all affects gene expression. And so those blue balls that you see, those are proteins called histones, and the DNA is wrapped around them. And then every experience we have, it shapes, like think of a string of beads, and the beads are all kind of close to each other. They're wrapped around my hand, and every experience changes or modulates which genes are close, which genes are further away from each other, and that influences how they express themselves. There's no difference between what's happening in your mind, in your consciousness, in your emotions, in your body. This is a diagram of the microbiome. So this is a nerve that's called the vagus nerve. It comes from, the word vagus means vagabond. So there are 2 of these. They're coming from your brain. They influence your heart rate variability, which is a sign of stress. They influence all the organs in your body. They influence the microbiome, all those bacteria, which also make chemicals that go back to feed your brain, and they influence your mood, cognition, and everything else that we call life, all one system. And by the way, this nerve is the one that you stimulate when you practice yoga. So when you do cat-cow, or you do Surya Namaskar, sun salutation, this is the nerve you're stimulating. And this nerve actually causes these very profound changes that heal your body. So yoga is not just exercise. Yoga is actually activating healing and self-regulation in your body. The vagus nerve is very important. And there's bidirectional traffic, which means traffic from the brain to the body and from the body back to the brain. Here's a study published by our scientists at the center, along with other scientists, which showed that the practice, so before meditation you say what? Who am I? What do I want? What's my purpose? What am I grateful for? Well, it changes your body. Just being grateful changes your body. This is a study in heart failure patients and inflammatory markers that went down, published in a journal from Columbia University in New York. And gratitude also physically changes your brain. Okay, so your brain actually changes and it gets activated in the frontal part of your cortex, which regulates different parts of the body. Okay, now what we're looking at is something called biofield science. So biofield science says that our bodies are like electrical batteries. The earth is like that too. And so is the whole universe. It's an electromagnetic field. So the biofield is the energy that comes from your body. And this biofield, the coherence, the order or the disorder of the field corresponds in many cases to how you're feeling. So if you're feeling anger and hostility and mistrust and cynicism and guilt and shame and depression and fear, then your biofield will be not so coherent. The human biofield can be measured about 8 feet from where you are. But of course, being part of the electromagnetic field of the cosmos, it extends indefinitely. So right now, all of us are emanating a biofield depending on the state of our well-being. And our biofields are interfering with each other's because they're electromagnetic fields. And so we are being regulated by each other. We are regulating each other. We are being monitored by each other. And we are monitoring each other. So there's no such thing as the separate self. There's no such thing as the separate body. There's no such thing as the separate mind. Our minds are embodied, but they're also relational. We cannot separate. You cannot separate yourself. You know, I told you, you separate the animal from the plant, it dies. You separate the plant from the animal, it dies. But at a deeper level, there is no such thing as the separate self. We are all part of one body. We call it the universe. We are all part of one mind. Whatever you want to all call that one mind. God, the Ein Sof, the infinite spirit, the non-local consciousness, awareness, it doesn't matter. So now we have the ability to actually measure the biofield. In fact, you're regulating your biofield right now by sitting on these mats which are grounding you to the earth. Okay? And our collective biofield is going through these walls. Electromagnetic energy has no walls. It's not impeded. That's why you can send somebody a text message or an email or a photo or a song, and we're doing that right now on Facebook. And so we're all connected. And so how you feel influences how other people feel. Who you are, not what you say, not what you do, but how you're feeling right this moment. So if we are all feeling happy and contented and joyful right now, then people on the street will start smiling even though they don't know what we're doing. It's the only way to change the world, is to change ourselves, because we are the world. We are the universe. Okay, so this is now all the energy medicines, everything that people call Reiki and energy medicine. This all can be understood as biofield medicine. This is an emerging frontier. These two papers have been published, and most of the scientists here are from here, and they have been published in good journals. Okay, we can also measure the biofield indirectly through brain waves and heart waves, and this is a study we did right here at the center in collaboration with Scripps, where we were able to show that within seconds of meditation, your brain and your heart move into a healthy direction. Okay, and these studies again are published in good journals like Frontiers in Human Neuroscience, and you see Sheila's there, and I'm there, and all our colleagues are there collaborating, and these studies have documented what wasn't possible to document before. This is a report in New Scientist from somebody else's study, which says human thoughts to switch on genes. But basically it's a little misleading, because what happened is, in this particular study, people had what they call a wireless powered optogenic designer cell implant, which that means they took the cells of a mouse, put them in a test tube, then had a group of people meditate in the lab, and the genes of the mouse changed their expression. It's a little misleading, okay? Mind control. It's not mind controlled, it's consciousness controlled, because the mind is quietening down in meditation. And genes, of course, I said, you know, if 80% of your genes are the same as a mouse, then what happens in you should influence the mouse, and it is, whether the mouse knows it or not. You know, the mouse doesn't have these concepts that you and I have. Just like the dog in the White House, what was his name, Bo, didn't know that Obama was the president, right? Or it was the Oval Office. But how does the dog respond to the president? The way the president treats the dog. Simple. And we don't even know what the inner experience is. So we have personal consciousness, we have transpersonal consciousness, we have collective consciousness, We have trans-species consciousness, which means our consciousness, we share it with other species, other life forms. And ultimately, we're all expressions of one consciousness. Okay? So at the highest level, that would be love as the ultimate truth at the heart of the universe. Ultimate truth at the heart of the universe. And now a scientific basis to show that. So what are these higher states of consciousness? Well, you're beginning to experience them. Transcendence, as in meditation. Peak experiences, joy, flow experiences, feeling one with each other, feeling one with the universe. Activating our intuition. Intuition is a form of intelligence that is holistic, that is nurturing, that does not have a win-lose orientation, that goes beyond cause-effect, that then takes leaps of creativity and ultimately touches the collective inheritance of our spiritual cultures. So all religions are founded on the basis of higher consciousness, of transcendence, going beyond thought, experiencing oneness, going out of the circle of time. You know, Rumi has a beautiful poem. He says, come out of the circle of time into the circle of love. Time is created the moment we separate. Time is basically the ego's mind. That's why the more stressed you are, you say, I'm running out of time. And then you start running out of it because your biological clock speeds up, heart rate goes up, rhythms get disrupted, platelets get jittery, hormones get distorted, inflammation in the body, have a heart attack, run out of time. Okay. When time actually doesn't even exist. It's just a way of measuring experience. Okay, but in our awareness is not in time. Our experiences are in time. Thought is in time. Emotions are in time. The experience of the body is in time. The experience of the world is in time. But who we are is not in time. So in all the great religious traditions, what they call the religious experience is called transcendence, higher consciousness, sacred response. The second experience is the emergence of values that comes from that experience, not as rules and regulations like 10 Commandments, but as natural outcomes of the experience of oneness, truth, goodness, beauty, harmony, evolution, connection, love, compassion, joy, equanimity. So that's the second aspect of the religious experience. And the third aspect of the religious experience is the loss of the fear of death. Because death happens to an experience, it doesn't happen to you. Death happens to a thought. In every moment, death is happening to thoughts, right? You had the thoughts this morning, they're dead. Unless you're, what is it called, OCD, okay? Then you recycle them. But otherwise, okay, otherwise, thoughts are born in every moment of time. What about emotions? They're also born in every moment of time. What about perceptions? They're also born and die every moment of time. You know, you are perceiving me giving this lecture, but when I came at 9:30, that was a different me, right? So that guy is dead. This is new. In every moment, we have experience that is born and that is dying as soon as it is born. The first part of my sentence dies by the time I complete the sentence. So every experience is being born, dying all the time. Right? Do you agree? Thoughts, feelings, emotions, perceptions, sound, taste, smell, touch, everything that we call experience is just like a on-off phenomenon. So birth and death are happening all the time. And you say, what about the present? Well, you can't catch the present. Can you? Can you catch the present? You can't, because as soon as you try to catch it, it's over. Right? That's why the German philosopher Ludwig Wittgenstein, he said, our life is a dream. We are asleep. But once in a while, we wake up enough to know that we are dreaming. So you're here, you thought for the weekend, but actually you're here to wake up. Try this now. As you're listening to me, just turn your attention to who's listening. So be aware of the listener. And what you're experiencing right now is your being. Being is a presence. It's prior to thought, prior to emotion, prior to experience. Without being, there's no experience. The experience is in time. Comes and goes, comes and goes, comes and goes. But being is not in time. And being is who we are. That's when the Bhagavad Gita, when Lord Krishna is teaching Arjuna, he says, your innermost being, yourself, was never born and is not subject to death. Water cannot wet it, wind cannot dry it, weapons cannot shatter it, fire cannot burn it. It was never born, and it will not die. Okay, what dies is born as experience. Mental experiences, emotional experiences, perceptual experiences, which are actually fluctuations of our own self. What's a thought? It's a modified form of yourself. A thought is a movement of consciousness. What's an emotion? A movement of consciousness. What's a perception? A movement of consciousness. So your mind, body, universe are constantly going on and off, and what's going on and off is you. The self of the individual, which has attached itself to certain memories, certain desires, certain experiences, and taken name and form. But as long as we identify with the name and form, then we're in a sense living in the dream. To wake up to the dream is to wake up to the presence that is always there. The presence that you experienced just now was there when you were a baby. It was there when you were a teenager. It's always been there. It has taken innumerable forms. This is another study that we've been doing here with Perfect Health program, with some of the things that you're doing. You know, when we look after ourselves, when you get a healthy massage, when you meditate, practice yoga, go on a good diet, engage in healthy emotions, then these are like literally trillions of things that we can measure. They're called, this is the science of metabolomics. So all the metabolites, all the proteins, all the inflammatory markers, gut microbiome, it would take a shipload just to measure, house this data. If, let's say, every bit of data was in the form of a penny, it would take a lot of containers to capture this data. But we have this published now, and it shows that you're transforming your body with just the simple practices that I spoke to you about. These are some studies we're planning now, right now on breast cancer, well-being surveys, microbiome studies, studies with yoga, pranayam, with movement, with some of these studies already show the different asanas. Asana, the word asana means seat of awareness, consciousness. So different asanas have different self-regulatory mechanisms, and for physical and psychological well-being, our emotions have very specific effects on these chemicals in our body, opiates, dopamine, serotonin, Emotions act as immunomodulators, which means they modulate the activity of the immune system. And of course, nutrition, nourishment is very important. The closer our food comes from the energy of the sun, the healthier it is, because the sun and the light of the sun is what gave us nourishment in the first place. Plants eat photons, and then we eat the plants. We are also eating the energy of the cosmos. And the more colorful your food, all these Ayurvedic herbs are basically have high color, lots of taste, and they regulate the activity of our genome. So these are well-known herbs that people know about, Gugulo and Triphala and others. These are some very common things that can be found in any kitchen. But you see, they all have color, they all have taste, and they all have different tastes, the tastes of life. Sweet, sour, salt, bitter, pungent, astringent, the 7 colors of the rainbow, and then you're getting in touch with nature. Now we've just begun studies on this process, earthing or grounding, and so when you're in direct contact with the earth, your body becomes suffused with negative ions that come from your body, and these are electrons that equalize or get rid of the free radicals. They neutralize the free radicals that build up in our body as a result of stress. So you see, this is inflammation, this is healing through earthing, through grounding. By the way, do you feel any different sitting on these mats? Some do, some don't. But of course, it all's subtle. But this is what's happening when we are connecting to the earth. So these are some of the things that happen when you connect with Mother Earth. Reduce inflammation, reduce pain, better sleep, increasing energy, normalizing hormones, biological rhythms, improve blood pressure, improve muscle tension, on and on and on. Each of these has a pill too. You know, next time you watch television, you'll see there's a pill for each of these, and they say, ask your doctor. But be warned, it could give you sexual impotence, it could kill you. And there's nice music in the background. And just, now please ask your doctor. Trillions of dollars. When all you have to do is go back to your source. Okay. So this is our healing system. Our consciousness is guiding our biology through the brain. And the brain is, of course, not who we are. Is the brain creating the mind? Is the mind creating the brain? You know, if you ask materialists, what's the mind? They say it's what the brain does. If you ask psychologists, what's the brain? They say it's what the mind does. So is the mind doing the brain? Is the brain doing the mind? Are they doing each other? What the heck is going on? Well, it's you, which is neither the mind nor the brain, but the consciousness, which is not in time, which is our inner self, our innermost being, that is orchestrating this whole activity, mind, brain, body, chemicals, gene expression, all self-regulation. That's why we say self-regulation. So, your body is a process, it's not a thing, it's not a structure, it's a verb, it's not a noun. Your body is also an energy and information field. Your genes and their expression are influenced by your thoughts, emotions, relationships, your social interaction, environment. This is the science we call epigenetics. You can change the neural networks of your brain to optimize your well-being. And this is the science which we call neuroplasticity. I said to you, only 5% of disease-related gene mutations are fully penetrant. You can change your relationship to time by always coming back to this moment. I shouldn't even say moment, because moment passes as soon as it happens. Coming back to the presence in which you're having experience. Self-referral. Being aware. Ask yourself, who is listening right now? Feel your body. So who's feeling this body? Who's having this thought? That's why those questions that we start with our meditation are so important. Who am I? You're not your name, you're not your form, you're the consciousness of the universe. What do you want? You want to know yourself. What else is there to know? If you don't know yourself, how will you know anybody else? Okay? You want intimacy with your own being. What is your purpose? To evolve. What are you grateful for? Existence. We didn't ask to exist, but here we are. Okay? So, as we practice these very simple things, we start to transform our relationship with time, because we know that our true being is not in time. And for all this, the key is self-awareness. And when you are self-aware, you reinvent yourself, your body, your mind, etc. Now we can extend this, those are the 6 pillars. We can start to begin to question our body as a thing. Your body is not a thing. It's a bundle of sensations, images, feelings, and thoughts in your own self. We can start to engage in a different way in which we experience time and therefore how we age. We can make sure that sleep becomes a spiritual experience. We can even learn what is called yoga nidra, so we start to have witnessing awareness in sleep. Meditation, of course, is something which is very crucial. We can be a little more mindful of what we put in our body, taking a few micronutrients if necessary, probiotics if necessary, not getting hung up on chemicals, practicing yoga and pranayama, making sure we move, not putting any toxin in our experience of life, whether it's a toxic environment, toxic relationships, toxic food, toxic behavior, learning to be adaptable and flexible, having a youthful, I'm not saying that, you're childish. You might even make it to the White House with that. But by youthful, I mean childlike innocence. What is childlike innocence? Wonder. It's the capacity to wonder, the capacity to be curious, the capacity to have an open mind. Children are innocent because they're still full of possibilities. To live with possibility, to live with a sense of adventure and joy. If you're not enjoying your life right now, you think you're going to enjoy it when you make a lot of money, or do this, or get this job. Well, if you're not present for your life right now, you won't be present when you arrive. You have to be present now to get the full flavor of experience. That is a childlike mind. And of course then, the experience of love, not just as a sentiment, not just as an emotion, but love as the ultimate truth at the heart of the universe. Okay, so in the last few minutes, what I want to do is talk about the fact that with all this, human beings still suffer. Because human beings, unlike other animals, don't think about the past. Do think about the past. They are burdened by the past, and they fear the future. If you kick a dog, the dog also has memory, and if you meet the dog 5 years later, it might attack you. But unlike a human being, the dog won't plan for 5 years how to get even. Okay? All our problems are because of the past and the memories that we hold on to. So the great teachers of Vedanta say, I use memories, but I do not allow memories to use me. If you allow yourself to be victimized by the past, then you will suffer. If you allow yourself to imagine something in the future which hasn't yet happened, then you're playing not with reality, but something that doesn't exist. So human suffering comes from what in the Vedanta are called the 5 kleshas. Kleshas is a Sanskrit word for human suffering. Not knowing the true nature of fundamental reality. There's perceptual reality, this world. Okay, this is a perception, a perceptual experience. He said this world is what there is. Well, this world that you are having the experience of is a human experience. This world looks totally different, I imagine, to an insect with 100 eyes, to a bat that experiences the world through the echo of ultrasound, through a chameleon whose experience of the world is through 2 different axes. Their eyeballs move in such a way that you can't even remotely imagine what this room would look like to a chameleon. Our perceptual experience is shaped by what is called the conditioned mind, the fragmented mind. So if you take a group of kittens, you put them in a room that has only horizontal stripes, then it'll only see a horizontal world. If you take the same group of kittens, you put them in a room that has vertical stripes, it'll see a vertical world. Is the world horizontal? Is the world vertical? Well, for those little kittens, it is. And their neurons are shaped by their experiences. And so this is happening to us too. You're born, you're given a name. So this, you're Deepak, you're Indian, you're born to this family, this tribe, if you will, this nation, this religion, and you're screwed. For the rest of your life, you're defending an identity which is given to you, right? Your name and your form, everything a label, a judgment, an evaluation. What are you before that? What you are before that is infinite possibilities, infinite potential. But then having assumed the fragmented mind, then we grasp and hold on to what? To experiences that don't last even a second. This idea that there's continuity of experience is another illusion. And why is the idea that there's continuity of an experience an illusion? Because of memory of the past. So memory of the past reinforces that there's continuity. In fact, the world is new in every moment. You know, in the Shiva Sutras, Lord Shiva says, step out of this river of memory and conditioning and see the world as if for the first time. The fear of impermanence, the impermanence of experience, identification with a false, constricted, habitual self, which is the ego, and the fear of death. These are the 5 causes of suffering. And these all come from telling ourselves a story which is based on a false understanding of who we are. We think we are the body-mind. The body-mind is an object of experience. Okay, when I say to you, where are you? Where are you right now? I'm here at the Chopra Center. So, normally, you know, we all think, when you say, what's the most common word we use? In any language? I, right? So, when I ask you, where are you? You say, I'm here. Let me ask you, where are you? Please raise your hands. Okay, so our assumption is, I'm here, and Deepak is there. Now, this is a big hallucination. If you go inside your body, there's no I to be found. There's no I here, there's no I here, there's nothing. So either I doesn't exist, which would be kind of silly because we use I all the time. I went to the movies, I went to Chinese food, or whatever. I don't like the taste of strawberries, or I do like, I'm in love. It's the most common word we use. So I could not be a hallucination, but I cannot be found. So I must not have a form. I is the one that is experiencing form. I is experiencing thoughts. I is experiencing this body. I is experiencing the world. And I is not in time. Tagore, the great Indian poet, he said, in this playhouse of infinite forms, I caught sight of that which was formless. And so my life was blessed. Your true essence is spirit, which has no form. And you know, when in religious or spiritual traditions, people say faith, it's not belief. Belief is a cover-up for insecurity. If I told you, do you believe in electricity? You would say, what do you mean? Here it is. Do you believe in gravity? I'm standing on the earth. Do you believe in yourself? I exist. Where is that exists? I can't see it. Why can't I see it? Because it's the one that is seeing. Why can't I touch it? It's the one that's doing the touching. There's no experience that you can have without I. If you say, lift your hand, boom, right? I is the source of intention. I is the source of reflection. I is the source of every experience, whether it's physical, mental, perceptual. Without I, there is no experience. And I is eternal. I is being. If we know who I is, then we have actually solved everything. So all our problems not come from not knowing who we are. And who we are is the infinite being having a finite experience. You know, you've heard these expressions, Teilhard de Chardin, who says, we are spiritual beings having a human experience. Well, I would phrase it a little differently, depending on the audience I'm with. We are non-local beings having a local experience. Non-local means no location in space or time, but having this local experience. And so when we get in this place, there are very practical values. We start living in possibilities. We start living in creativity. We start harnessing the power of intention. We experience synchronicity, meaningful coincidences, good luck, being in the right place at the right time. Now, if you ask people who have achieved extraordinary things, they say, I was in the right place at the right time. I was lucky. God was on my side. I was in a state of grace. There were many coincidences. It all means only one thing. They were connected with themselves. And being connected with themselves, they were connected with all that exists, because the self, as I said, of the individual is the self of the universe. The Sanskrit expression, Atman is Brahman. So at this level, and only this level, there are solutions to perceived problems. Otherwise, you can't solve a problem that was created by the mind with the mind. The mind is a hindrance. What you need to do is get to the source of mind. And the source of mind is the source of thought, is the source of perception, is the source of every experience. An object of experience cannot be the source of experience. I'll repeat that sentence. An object of experience cannot be the source of experience. Or, to say it even further, deeper, an object in consciousness cannot be the source of consciousness. So we have all these scientists looking for consciousness in the brain. They can't find it. looking for consciousness in the body, looking for consciousness in the universe. Can't find it. Why? Because it's consciousness that's doing the looking. Okay. Consciousness cannot be found in an object in consciousness. Consciousness can only be found by going back to the source, which is really the true meaning of yoga. Okay? Yoga, yuj, going back to your source, whether it is through all the practices, the 8 limbs of yoga, yamas and niyamas and pratyahara, which is withdrawal of the senses, pranayam, yoga asanas, dhyan or dharana, focused awareness, dhyan, meditation, and samadhi, transcendence. These are all come together so we can find ourselves. And when we find ourselves, when we return to the self, we actually discover all the secrets of the universe. So we took a journey here, starting with how we came into this name and form. But remember, it's our destiny to assume infinite names and forms. And don't get stuck on one name or not one form. Rumi's poem, when I die, I will soar with angels. But when I die to the angels, what I shall become, you cannot imagine. What I shall become, you cannot imagine. Imagination, as even Einstein said, is much more important than knowledge, because imagination comes from our consciousness, and then there's knowledge, then there's creativity, and then there's all the other things that we call reality. There's awareness, thought, feeling, perception, reality. That's the sequence. Many people who study philosophy, they say, I've heard this, Descartes said, I think, therefore I am. Well, Descartes was wrong. I am, therefore I think. Because without being, there's no... Being has to be there first, and then thought and feeling. So that's basically why you're here this weekend, to experience the self, and that's real ultimate rejuvenation and renewal. So let's take a break for half an hour, and then I'll be happy to answer your questions. Okay? Thank you.